afternoon, Candice. How are you?
Hey, Jocelyn, how are you? I'm good. Doing well, doing well. Can't complain.
I love to hear it. Thank you so much for joining me for Confidence Conversations.
No, thank you for inviting me on. I'm so excited. I've watched a few of your interviews and I really, really enjoy them.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And by now, you probably know we start with one question, which is, what does confidence mean to you?
Confidence to me is basically just owning who you are. And I think that can sound a little bit cliche, but I think as I've gotten older, I realized that there you really have to love deeply who you are and who God created you to be. And it's a fight some days. Some days you might look in the mirror and you don't like what you see or you don't like what you feel. But I think confidence is just every day growing that love for yourself and just embracing who you are.
Yeah, you're so right. A lot of times we hear that phrase and it's cute and we're like, yeah, I love me, I'm
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
all that. But what does that really mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know what it means to you, because for me, it means showing up authentically, even when it hurts,
Yeah.
even when you know that people may not accept you or may not like it. But I want to get your perspective on what it means to live that way.
To live that way for me is to, one, like you said, you have to, I think confidence, some people think it's just like either you're confident or you're not. For me, confidence is you have to put the work in, I think, to really get down to the root of the things that make you feel insecure, or that make you feel not so confident, or make you feel like you can't show up as your authentic self. So one, addressing those things and getting to the bottom of those things, but then also giving yourself grace to you show up and you might not feel like hot stuff that day, but then being okay and knowing that the next day you might feel better, or giving yourself that grace and being patient with yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah, we have to give ourselves grace because the world certainly isn't, right?
Yeah.
And I think we live in a time where everyone's expected to be perfect. And so we put that pressure on ourselves. We live in a no mistake society because if
Right.
you screw up, we don't teach you, we cancel you. And so
Exactly.
rather than being able to show up, a lot of times I think we suppress ourselves and don't show up at all. We're in the room, but we haven't shown up because for fear of being labeled stupid or being canceled or saying the wrong thing. And so I love that you said, let's get down to the root of why we feel insecure. Let's get down to the root of what makes us uncomfortable, because that really is where the learning happens. And I've gone through that journey as well. And I can say that that's probably one of the darkest processes, because you're doing that like deep, dark night of the soul, the the hard work, the heavy
No
work.
hard work. Yeah.
So what was that process like for you?
For me, that process was a lot of the things that I felt like were weighing me down. It was a lot of shame and a lot of guilt. It was a lot of things from my past that I couldn't get over. Why didn't you do it this way? How come when they said this, you didn't do this? Just kind of replaying those things over and over in your mind.
Yeah.
So for me, I really had to do a lot of work in unwiring that entire thought process, and kind of changing the way that I thought about myself and changing the way that I thought about the things that I'm not so proud of, and kind of just being able to move forward for them. So there's we haven't gotten there yet, but there is a exercise that actually I came across on YouTube. There's this lady, I don't remember her name, and I hate that I don't remember her name right in this very moment, but it was about writing down all of the things that make you cringe inside when you think about whatever that might look like. So writing everything down, reading the whole list, if it's 4 pages, if it's 10 pages, reading the whole list, and once that kind of settles in, it's like not as emotionally reactive. Then you go through and you cross it out and you write something that's true. So if it is like, I think I'm a failure because I didn't become a doctor, that's a personal story. Going through and kind of crossing that out and saying, no, don't think about it this way. Think about it this way. I'm glad I got the opportunity to explore what I felt like I should have done to arrive at what I actually am supposed to be doing, what's actually my purpose. So kind of switching that mind frame, because negative self-talk is a you know what. And I think for me, that was very, very important in digging deep and figuring out why do I feel these negative ways about myself, and how can I rewire it? So that was, it sounds cute, especially when the lady's standing. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do that. And then I'm like,
right. You're right. You literally like crying, pouring your heart out.
Literally the page is wet. So it sounds cute, but it's really deep and hard work, but it's worth it. It's really worth it.
And the thing about exercises like that is that you literally are getting it out. Like literally, you're getting it out, you're putting it on a page, and then you are disassociating yourself from that. You are not those things, you're not those feelings, you're not that failure. Your life just went in a different direction. And I think that identifying, like you were able to do so beautifully, what is going on underneath the surface, and then getting to your why and making that work for you, that's the crucial process. Because I think a lot of times we have a tendency to want to turn away from those things. We don't want to look at it. We don't want to, because it makes us cringe. I don't want to cringe, especially not about myself. It's funny. It's comedy. It's like I forget the quote, but it's like, it's funny as long as it's not happening to us. So we don't want to look at that, but it's beautiful that it's like a caterpillar. You are able to transform that into your own butterfly, and now to a business where you're helping lots of people do the same. So tell me what you're up to.
So I'm pouring my heart and everything into Everything She Is Co. And I think Everything She Is Co. is a platform that I feel like is a reflection of what I needed and what I continue to need. So as I'm going through my journey, I'm pulling from things that I wish I could have heard, or tools that I wish that I had, and building those for the community. So the first thing that I created was a Self Love Workbook, and the exercise that I just spoke on is in there. And that's really just, I'm trying to live my life as authentically as possible. I'm trying to continue on my journey and not feeling like I've arrived, because okay, now I have this platform where I'm telling girls to love themselves. So now I love myself. So here, look at me. I love myself. Continuing to do the work so then I can continue to add value to my audience, and continue to just give authentic tips. And that's what I'm really trying to do. And the Self Love Workbook has been really, really good to people, and it's been really good to me. I was my first customer, so that's really what I've been up to. And just like I said, just creating more, and trying to help people and tap in to see what it is that people need and what I need. So
yeah, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing and your workbook and just the environment that you provide. I saw the boxes that you send out to people. It's not just a workbook. That is like an experience, like an invitation to your home. And it's beautiful, because I think that, let's be real, in order to want to do the work, it has to be appealing. And I think that you definitely bring that. And it's wonderful that you were your first customer, because I don't think that we can have a meaningful product, service, talk, conversation, unless you've been through that thing, you've seen it, you've been through the trenches yourself, and now you're able to talk about it, you're able to teach it back. And so I love how authentic that your model is. Now, you mentioned though that you were in a period of time a while ago where you were struggling through identity, thinking of yourself as a failure. And I want to know, like, what was the journey to get out of that? Because I think there's so much healing and humanization that comes with hearing the stories of others.
Yeah. So I found myself at my lowest point after I graduated college. And I think a lot of people honestly can relate to that. Just like, who am I? What's my purpose? Why am I here? And especially if your initial plan doesn't work out the way that you thought it was going to be. I thought I wanted to be a gynecologist, so I went to school for biomedical sciences. I didn't do extremely well. I didn't excel in my classes, so that was already a disappointment for me and for my family. So when I got back, I just was trying to push forward. Like, you got to get into medical school. You have to. These are people that are expecting this from you. You have to. There's no other choice. And continuously just pushing myself in the wrong direction and creating failure for myself over and over because I didn't listen to myself. So It's
So
like,
you heard that in your head that you wanted to do something else?
yeah, I knew that. I knew I wanted to do something else. I pushed forward because I felt like that's what I should be doing. I should be pushing because it's not easy. Medical school isn't something that's easy. So there's already a certain amount of resistance that you can expect. But for me, I knew that the passion wasn't there. I knew when I was in my classes, I wasn't as excited as my peers. I wasn't going home and looking at extra articles. I was at home making YouTube videos and straightening my hair and like trying new hair products and doing all these other things that I knew weren't on par with where I said I wanted to end up. So yeah, just creating failure for myself over and over. Okay, well, I'll try this way. And then it's not going to work because it's not for me. But I didn't know that in that way at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's also other things, failed relationships, a lot of emotional, physical abuse when I was in college, those type of things that kind of just changed the way that I looked at myself. So by the end of all that, I'm like, who is this person? And okay, let me pour a glass of wine and let me get in the bath. Like, let me listen to some Sade.
Girl.
It didn't do it.
Are we the same person?
It's cute and it's cute, but that doesn't heal trauma. Right. And that doesn't address the deep questions that you need to ask. So I said, okay, it's not as simple as this. There's a lot of nights crying. There's a lot of just like heaviness, and it's not really a way to put that into words, but people feel you felt it before, like that heaviness of like something is just wrong and I'm not myself. So from there, I did all of the unhealthy things, lashing out on, Twitter, talking about, this and talking about that, or posting me in a bath, acting like I'm okay, all that kind of stuff. And, by the end of it, I felt like, okay, girl, like you're not happy, figure it out. So it just looked like, I listened to a lot of sermons online to try to connect with my God and my source, trying to figure out like, okay, you brought me here. What is it that I'm supposed to be doing? So trying to connect that way. And then also it came a point where I realized that I was running from a lot of stuff. I'm a crier. Mm-hmm. I cry for everything. And I realized that I hadn't cried in 2 years. Like I realized that I hadn't felt my feelings in 2 years, and I had to unpack why that was. So the first thing, like I said, was doing that exercise. I wrote down all the things that I regret. I wrote down, and just from there, everything just overflowed. Like you can ask yourself one simple question, is that one thing that's like, okay, you've really been trying to bury that, but once you kind of tap on it, it just all comes flying back up. So it was that. And then it wasn't over then. It's not over once you recognize it. You have to.
That's just the beginning.
That's just the beginning. It's literally just the beginning. And that's when the journey starts, when that self-awareness starts to kick in. That's when the journey starts. And the journey is never ending. There's no graduation date for healing. And you have to continue to do the work as new things come up. So it just looked like following social media accounts that were positive and that could edify me, reading books, bell hooks, and what was it called? There's 2 different books that I started reading at that time, just kind of doing things that were productive and really being protective over my space, over my time, not spending my time going out, drinking, things that aren't productive, and really just being protective over my energy and making sure that everything that I was doing was nurturing me. So yeah.
I love that. And that you say that there's no graduation date for healing. And that couldn't be more true. I think that we think there's a time where we've arrived and that we have all the answers. But the thing about self-actualization is that when you crack the code on one thing, you get a new puzzle to solve, a new, there's levels to this, and they're never ending. And I think that the way that you described your journey is so important, because I think that a lot of times people think that you have to have these huge steps and do something super big to start creating change in your life and seeing yourself as this happy person, or not even as a happy person, but as a healed person, as a whole person, and a person that and are able to recognize. I think people think that it takes some grand gesture, and it really can start with changing your environment. And that doesn't mean, you know, going to Wayfair or Home Goods. It means changing what's around you. Like, I love that you went on Instagram, followed accounts that were pouring light, love, and positivity into your day, rather than, you know, you follow whatever you please, but like, you have to be intentional about what you allow into your energy, into your space, because that becomes your environment. And so I know that you're creating an environment of healing for other people. So I want to know, how has your work impacted the way that you live and see yourself?
How is the work that I'm doing? I
Mm-hmm.
think it's really made me practice what I preach. It's really made me say, okay, I know obviously I'm human, you know, everybody falls short. Everybody isn't 100% like, you know, focused in on healing every second of the day. But it's really made me see the importance, for one, because it's one thing to know that something's important for you, but it's another thing to see how important it is for other people too. It's like, wow, I knew I needed this and I felt like maybe other people needed it, but wow, people actually do need this and they appreciate it. And a lot of people, when they get the book, because it's so cute on the outside, they feel like, oh, okay, like let me just
Right.
start. And they're like, oh, like this is some heavy lifting here. And it is, and it just speaks to how often we're not asked those questions, just how often we don't ask ourselves, other people. My mom didn't teach me to ask myself those questions. So I'm learning how much healing we as a collective need to do, and how important it is, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's key, is like, when you find something, you're like, I think this
Yeah.
might help other people, but I'm not really sure. Did you hesitate in terms of in introducing your product, your journal, to others?
I
No.
didn't.
Okay.
I mean, obviously there was a period where I had a self-love workbook, but it was like papers everywhere, my own journal and all this. So putting it together, making it something that was nice, because that was something that was really important for me, is to like combine self-care, the aesthetic, with self-care, the real work, and making sure that there was a balance between the two. Because like you said, you get it and it feels good to do. So creating that experience took time, but as far as like, I knew I wanted to do it once I realized, wow, these questions really helped me. Like, I feel much better. And because I was already doing YouTube, I was already sharing a certain amount online, I felt it, not my duty, but I felt it. I can share a hairstyle. I can say, oh my God, I figured out this new way how to braid a ponytail. Why can't I share, something that I felt like was even more impactful and transformational, just on a holistic level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that, but I want to know what you do on a daily basis now that you've gone through and you've done your journal, you've written it, you've gotten it out there to others. What do you do on a daily basis to stay in a good mindset?
In a good mindset. Recently, one thing that I've been trying to do is practice being present.
Mhm.
Um, I realize that when I get carried away with the hustle and bustle of what I have to do, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., by 6 p.m., I'm just like all over the place, just disheveled. So just taking time to just be present. And that could be something as simple as, when I'm taking a shower, just making sure that I'm moving slowly, and just like, yeah, washing my arm. Wow, look at my arm. Like just little
Yeah,
things like
yeah.
that, where you can just like breeze through certain things and just rush through certain things when you're doing your skincare routine. Just feel like, just be in your body. And I think I've struggled with anxiety a lot, and that's something that's really helped my mental health, is slowing down intentionally.
Mhm.
And also knowing when to say no, having boundaries, knowing when I need to take time away, tuning into my body, and knowing when enough is enough, learning how to shut off work, because as an entrepreneur, all the time, thoughts are just, everything comes back to work. You see anything, it's like, oh, that could be
Nonstop
a good
revenge.
idea. Yeah, like my dreams a lot. The name for everything she is co came in my dream. Recently something else came to me in my dream, and I'm dreaming about work, and I'm trying to make sure that I know when to turn it off and when to just be, because productivity can become your end all be all. And it's also, while it's productivity is productive, like it's a good thing, it can also become a defining factor for people. And I don't think the work that you do defines who you are. I think it's an asset to who you are. So all of those things I try and keep, keep on my mind, and keep doing. And sometimes I fall off. Some weeks I'm going to sleep at 2 a.m. because I'm working all day, but trying to get back to it is always what I try to do.
It is this cycle, right? We are very intentional, but then you get caught up in the day to day, and you do those times where you realize, oh man, I need to take a break. So I love that you do intentional things throughout the course of things that you'd already be doing. I think a lot of times
Already.
we have to set aside time for meditation, which I recommend. But if you don't want to do that, be in the shower, observe your body as you're washing your body, and be in that moment, rather than, because I have the tendency to think a mile a minute.
Yes.
And through everything, what I have to do for that day, what I didn't do yesterday, like orders, products, like whatever. Be intentional in that moment about, let me just take a deep breath. I think sometimes that's one of the most healing things we can do, is just take a breath in the moment and come back to where I am right now, and just do things step by step to alleviate that anxiety, because that's something that I've kind of worked through and struggled with as well.
Yeah, it's small steps. And like you said, it doesn't have to be a huge 10-step routine in order for you to, it could be something as small as just taking a deep breath, just pausing for a second. If you're outside, just taking it in, like, wow, like look at the trees, look at this, and just being grateful, creating those moments for gratefulness.
Yeah. Another thing that you mentioned is creating boundaries and protecting your energy, which are so key and very important, but also pretty hard to do, especially when you're not accustomed to having firm and healthy boundaries. So what are your tips to help people establish those for themselves?
I think self-awareness for me is always the first step. I think you have to identify things that are draining your energy, things that once you do it, you feel like something has been taking away, just like a little bit of your energy is gone after it. So whether that's when you interact with somebody, when you pick up the phone for somebody, when you go out when you didn't really want to, how do you feel after that? And I think when you build your self-love, you get super protective over that, because you know how that wholeness feels, and you don't want to sacrifice it for things that aren't as important as it. So I think there's exercise in the self-love workbook about building boundaries, and I think the first thing is just allowing yourself to create. I don't know, it's weird, because some people feel like I have to, like, who am I to say no? If somebody asks something of me, I would be a bad person, I would be this, I would be that. So letting go of that, letting go of what other people might feel like if you say no. And then from there, just building those boundaries and just getting really, really specific about what it is that you don't want to allow for yourself. So that looks different for different people. Different people need different types of boundaries. And I think just kind of figuring that on your own is really important.
Yeah. Well, one way to figure it out on your own is to go over to your website and purchase the self-love guide. So tell me where people can find you, social media, Instagram, website. Want to know all the details. Where do we buy the workbook?
Yes. So the workbook is available at everythingSheIs.co, and the Instagram is everythingSheIs.co, as well as the Facebook is everythingSheIs.co. And my personal Instagram is by Candice Jones, and you can keep up with me there, and also on the Everything She Is platform. I pop up on there sometimes every now and again. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I cannot wait for people to start the process of healing through all of the work that you've provided and laid out so eloquently in your journal.
Thank you so much. Thank you.